Hello, my name is Laura. Today we will be discussing questions that have been sent to us from one of our viewers. And it's in regard to the video Relationships and Twin Flame Ray versus Soulmates. So if you haven't watched that one, you might want to watch that before we continue here. These questions, there are two of them, and they come from Agnes. We'll take them one at a time and answer them. The first one, what if someone is in an abusive relationship? Does it still create karma if they leave? My husband is off to the side. He's recording this video, so you'll only hear him. But he'll help answer the questions too.
Are you sure?
Oh, yes.
Maybe I'll go on one of those strikes. What do they call them? Where you stay quiet?
There's no union here. I don't know what strike you're going to go on.
Okay. That's not going to work then. All right. That's a really interesting question, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That could almost be controversial. You know that? If you if you don't understand, as the second part of the question goes, what
does it create karma if they leave?
Karma, right? In this society, what are we taught? Or what do people normally do? Let's say in a marriage, or somebody's dating somebody, and they get unhappy in that relationship.
Oh, people tell them to leave. You shouldn't be in that relationship. Get out of it.
Why?
Because they don't see that it's benefiting you, and they figure you don't know it, so they're going to tell you to leave it.
Right.
And maybe even you might feel that, you're being taken advantage of or something, but you still love the person, you want to be there, but you still listen to your friends anyway.
Well, you should. If you're
I know.
If somebody's abusing you, I think it's a good idea to listen to your friends, don't you think?
Yes.
So what do you say like that? As if though,
because I think someone should also pray about it.
And God will tell you to stay in an abusive relationship?
Well, God will guide you. I don't know if he'll say stay in the relationship, but he'll guide you.
Oh. So then what if...
So if your friends all of a sudden start coming in full force, hey, you really need to leave, you got to get out of there. Okay, I'll take that as a real sign now from God. I have to get out of this.
How do you know it's really God? What if they're just being pushy?
Well, you'll find out sooner or later, because you might end up in another abusive relationship, and then...
Well, you see how it can become really controversial, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because, first of all, normally when someone gives you advice that they feel will benefit you is because they care about you. Mm-hmm. That's normally the case. So if a relationship is being abusive and they feel it's being abusive and they suggest you get out of there, it's because they don't want you to be abused any longer. Mm-hmm. So who in their right mind would want to keep someone they care about in a relationship or encourage them to be in a relationship that's apparently hurting that person that they care about?
They wouldn't. So what do you do in a case when it's maybe a child in an abusive family?
Well, it's the same thing. The child, you're assuming the child doesn't have friends, but the child will have friends. Mm-hmm. And the friends will probably see what's going on. And the friends will do the same thing. Say, maybe you should come stay with us. Or you should tell the police or tell the teacher. Tell somebody, right? Mm-hmm. But then the child is afraid, so the child doesn't say anything.
Right.
So now what? The child stays in a relationship, continues to be abused, and things don't look so good for that kid. But it's a very good question. Mm-hmm. If you go to a counselor goes through different things, but when it's all done, they'll try to help you make a decision as well. Right? In many cases, I've heard them say, well, leave the person, right? Mm-hmm. Leave the bum. If it's one of those where it's a marriage or a dating or something like that, say, just leave the bum. Of course, if it's a family member, a child, then they try to help you mend that relationship. Mm-hmm. I would think, right? But I've seen cases where they send the kids to juvenile homes because they say the kids are
in danger.
They're in danger?
The kids could be in danger, right? If it's an abusive relationship where the parents are abusing them.
No, a juvenile home would be where that's the one. It's almost like it's a place for kids that are not disciplined.
Oh.
That's what a juvenile home is.
Oh, so maybe the kids were being abusive to the parents?
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't even think of that one.
Right.
I normally think about parents abusing the kids, which is when they end up in the foster care system usually.
See, that's different. That's foster care. That's when the kids are being abused and they're in danger. But then it could also be where the kids are abusing the parents.
Okay then.
So the question becomes, all right, you're being abused, you feel that this is not good for you, so you leave. Are you creating karma by doing that? Excellent question.
It is. How do you know?
Well, this is where you ask for guidance. And when we say guidance, we're talking about not from a therapist or a psychologist. You literally have to go, and everybody has a spirit guide. Everybody has guardian angels. I know people have heard this before. The only thing is, a lot of us, we're not in tune with them. They'll give us messages through dreams, but then we don't pay attention to the dreams. But they can give you answers, and they can give you guidance. Now getting back to something we said earlier in take number 405 of this video, we talked about how when you think about life from the karmic standpoint, then it could be karma that they're balancing. Right? And what does that mean? Well, if the person being abused had abused the individual in this life that's not doing the abusing, then they're going through that to balance karma between them. Then they can move on with their lives, right?
Right.
It could also be that the person that's doing the abusing did it in a previous lifetime to the person that's being abused. And they came back in this lifetime, they agreed to come back in this lifetime to see if the same situation, the same scenario will play itself out again. In the hopes that the person that's doing abusing will learn the lesson and say, okay, in this lifetime, I'll be better, I'll behave better. But you don't know that until you get the guidance that should help you with that. Now, why do I stress guidance? I remember a movie that, I don't know if you and I watched it. Did we ever watch that movie? I know we got the movie.
You had watched part of it, but I never saw it.
Right. The movie is called Heaven and Earth, right? Heaven and Earth.
Heaven and Earth.
Right.
Tommy Lee Jones is one of the main characters.
Right. I stress that because there are other movies out there with similar names, but they're not. The storyline is not the same. This is based on a true story. All right. So it's a good movie to watch, but it's a very disturbing movie. So I won't go into the details with that, and that's why I couldn't watch the whole movie. Anyway, what we understand about the law of karma is that we're supposed to balance it, correct? And that's where this whole thing gets really tricky, because if you're being abused, society, society tells you, don't let that happen. Get out of that.
Right.
If you want to live your life by the law of karma, where you want to balance things, then the teachings tell you you should balance that karma. What does that mean? That would mean that you want to stay in that relationship to balance that karma. Otherwise, you're going to go through that again another time. So if you look at that, it's pretty much saying, well, deal with it now so you don't have to deal with it later. Well, that might sound mean.
Or unfair.
Right. But it's karma that we've created for ourselves. Now, you can stay in a relationship like that, and actually, you can be fine. And that's where, for example, with us, when somebody contacts us, and the person says, well, I need help with this relationship, whether it's between their kids and them, or between them and their spouse, we go on their behalf, and we talk to the angels and ask them how they can help this relationship be better. And that's how you can lighten the burden of that relationship. So all of a sudden you notice that instead of you being abused, it turns for the better. It's not as bad as before. You're still in a relationship, you're still balancing the karma, but now it's not as abusive as before. So let's say, for example, in the past you were being hit, right, physical abuse. Maybe when it's all done, the angels using the dharma that you have, right, from your savings account, now can reduce that to where maybe you are verbally abused.
Okay.
Well, as much as it hurts to be verbally abused, I think it's much nicer than
having
being-
broken bones or bruises.
Exactly. Right? Or it might even be where you're verbally abused, but it's very infrequent. So different ways for this to happen, where actually the load or the burden can be taken off the whole relationship and make it
Bearable.
bearable, right? Thank you. Make it bearable for everyone involved. So to answer the question, if you leave the relationship, depending on, if you leave, then yes, there's still karma to be balanced. You're not creating karma, the karma is already there. You just haven't
balanced it.
Exactly, right?
So you'd still have to come back and balance it with that individual.
It might not be the next lifetime, but somewhere down the line, it has to be balanced. Now, as you know by now, what happens if this person goes, well, what will happen in a relationship with this individual? Anyway, the one that leaves that relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is.
Usually they end up in the same kind of relationship.
And that's the thing, right? It continues, even in this lifetime. That thread will continue. It just stays there. It's not cut. It's not broken. So it's always good to just handle it. Take care of it. And that's where you have to be careful. As in, now let's say you're in that relationship and then the person that's causing the abuse decides that they're sick and tired of this relationship. They're leaving. Well, you celebrate 4th of July, right? You say hooray. You don't do it in front of them because they might get mad about it, but they leave. Are you creating karma?
No.
Why is that?
Because you stayed there and they're the one choosing to leave, so they'll still have to balance it.
But do you have to be there to balance it with them?
No.
Why is that?
Because you did your part and you stayed.
Exactly.
And you worked through it as best as you could.
And that's the way it works. So if you stay there and they leave, you balance your karma. The reason why they left is because the karma with them was balanced. You did your part. Now they still have to go and deal with whatever it is they did not finish balancing. And maybe, as a matter of fact, it was already balanced and that's why they left. Because they don't have to abuse you anymore. It's done.
Okay.
So you celebrate and it's over with.
All right.
I think we should leave this by itself as one question.
That sounds good. We'll answer the next question in the next video.